All right, everyone, I think we're ready to begin. So I'll let Marc-André start the ball.
There's a lot of people coming in, so we'll just wait a couple of minutes. Just make sure we start at like 32 past the hour.
Okay, this is true. I do see a lot of people are coming in. We're very happy that you all can all join us today. I'll take a moment to let you know that we do want you to ask a lot of questions. We're leaving a lot of space for questions afterwards. Even if we don't get to your question, we'll make sure someone will, whether it's your account manager or if you're not already a ShoWeb client, someone new that would love to start a relationship with you. Feels like I'm watching a file download. 75, 76, 76. I am also well aware for the people that are already watching that we are looking like we're playing a game of silence and statue right now. It's awkward for us too, don't worry.
I will win.
People are still coming in.
Yep. I guess this is the feature of GoToWebinar to make sure it doesn't crash anything.
Otherwise, I guess you can all take some time and look behind us and judge us by our taste in the literature or figurines.
How many peanut butter sculptures? Yeah.
Mine's great. Nobody knows anything about me. It's just a wall, so it's perfect. Nothing identifying. So when you guys get stalked online, you have only to blame yourself for having your letter out there, James Walburn, with your address on it. Just put that away real quick.
Since we're also 3 guitar players, so maybe after this we can jam. I'm pretty horrible.
So I think Game Star will do the vocals, but he only does screamo. So you guys are gonna have to adapt to that.
Okay, so you want to start? Go. So welcome everyone to this working remotely webinar. My name is Marc-André Fontaine. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for ShoWeb. And as you all know, the world around us is changing. We all have to adapt and change the way we work. So over the past few days, ShoWeb enabled its 800 employees to work from home. And today with this webinar, we want to share best practices and concrete steps on how to set up your people to work securely from home. As you can see, we are all working from our place, including myself. And since the beginning of this journey, we all have like very funny story to share that we'll probably do in another call. I want to make sure that after this webinar, you all have a bit more like steps and you are all a bit more empowered to help and support employees and clients in this journey. So we want to, as I said, we want to give you concrete steps and not only on Microsoft Teams, because I think everybody knows this tool, but I'm talking about like phone system, PBXs, the heavy desktop users, how do we migrate them to the cloud, the security, of course, and the training and so on. So this webinar, as you can see, is not meant to be perfect. This webinar is meant to be timely, and we really want to empower you with the right tools in this within this situation. So I'd like to introduce the panel that I have in front of me and you all have in front of you. Our two key speakers, Alexandre Laflamme and Michael Slater. And the rest of the team will be there for Q&A at the end of the session. So James Welburn, our Cloud PBX expert, James Sauer, our security expert and pre-sale specialist, and Eric Beauchamp, our IaaS and cloud solution expert. So with that, I'll just leave the stage to Alex and Michael.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So today's agenda is going to be very simple. It's going to be talking about the remote work opportunities, and again, like I said before, a big section for Q&A. Again, very important that you all participate in this and ask a lot of questions. Don't wait until the end, file them in. We do have someone who's taking all the questions. And there is one, major question we want to ask at first for everyone, if possible. And it is, are you currently using Teams? Is this something that you are using? Something on the webinar says, organizer must close the poll to enable screen sharing. I have no idea what that means. Hopefully you're getting the questions. Otherwise, do answer. We'll just keep going. As Marc-André says, the situation is very different than it was even a month ago. I think pretty much everyone is living La Covida Loca lately, and that's having to find new ways to work, find new ways to deal with life, and making sure everyone is safe and everyone is able to kind of deal with this global change in the world. So the first thing that's coming up is really the fact that pretty much everyone has to work from home if they're going to keep working. So in your business, in your situation, if you hadn't been working from home before, it should feel a bit like you're completely lost. You don't have any reference points. You don't know where to go, how to start. So the goal here is to try to give you some ideas, some tips, some methods on how to work remotely. First with the easiest solutions, the ones that are easiest to implement, and then to kind of show you, like, to kind of take this this opportunity, if you will, of having to work from home and to try to integrate it to what's going to happen after. Are there certain things that you're going to want to keep? Is there certain advantages for working from home that you'll want to keep going after the crisis is over?
That's an interesting point, right? Because we're going to a time of unprecedented digital transformation. This is something that, again, has been elective largely for everybody for the last 10 years, where businesses that have been on premise and typically haven't had to go to cloud are now being forced to, which we've never seen happen in the business world before. So, really the goal of this is to get you guys set up and to be as helpful as you. We're not here to really sell, we're not here to promote, we're just here to help. And that's what we want to be our main focus, to make sure everybody that we take care of in our extended SureWeb family is equipped to deal with this new reality, because it's been shocking for everybody. And again, we want to reduce that shock as much as possible and try to find something that works for today and for tomorrow.
Exactly, that's a good point. And again, so the way we're setting this up is going to talk about like the first step's going to be very simple, very easy. And then of course, as we move forward, we're going to talk about the more complex solutions. So again, if there might be certain things that you can do today, and then if you engage with us, we'll be able to show you how you can, work your way towards the more complex solutions so that you are working not only, 10%, 20%, but 100% as you were before all of this happened. The first step, which is again the most important one, is to make sure that you are ensuring communication. Communication can be many things for us, and what we found again from this change is to be able to use Teams and to be able to see each other when we're talking, because that's one thing that was available all the way up until a couple of weeks ago. We would see everyone, you'd have the water cooler conversation, you'd be able to kind of catch up, build those relationships, and now you're kind of all stuck in your own bubble and you don't know what to do. So the first thing that's going to be very simple to do is to see if you have Teams. The good news is that if you're on Office 365, most of the licensing does include Teams. So as long as you didn't try to get some sort of very simple, basic, Exchange Online Plan 1 type of licensing, you should have Teams already enabled. And if you're not on one of those queues, the actual difference in price to get one that includes Teams is minimal, if sometimes even non-existent. If you're not on Office 365 at all and you're not using Teams at all, please do contact us, because we do have some trials that Microsoft has extended for this period of time to be able to get Teams working for you for free for 6 months, I believe. And the other thing about Teams that's great is that once you get started, and of course we'll be providing you with all the links in the documentation after this webinar on how to do it, is that once you have it, it's very intuitive. If you ever used any type of chat program before, you have the big icons, you know how to do it. It's very like if you want to call someone, it's a phone icon. If you want a video chat, it's a little video camera icon. So it works very well like that. And of course, whenever you want to talk to your clients, because as a business, you've been all calling your clients before, emailing your clients, but now it would be a good idea to try to see your clients as well. One thing to know is that they don't have to have Teams for you to be able to set up a Teams meeting and them being able to video conference with you. So that's one thing that we found out from prior webinars and questions from clients, is that it's not something that your clients or your other businesses that you're dealing with have to have for you to make the most use of it. Once you try it, first you'll love it, and then after that, you'll be able to also see internally how to make sure that everyone on the team is communicating. Again, Microsoft has been putting out a lot of videos lately on Teams, all the different things that you can do working in a remote environment, or what they call like the modern workplace, on how things are done. So I invite you all to do look into YouTube for Teams to see all those videos, because again, it's very simple to set up. And the other thing after that is the way the slide is working is that whenever you're using Teams, anything that you want to do more and more, it's just going to be one step further. So it's not really about changing everything that you're doing from the get-go, but really finding the things that fit for you. And then once you're comfortable with them, engaging the other, services that they have as well. So there's things like meetings and conferences as well that you can do, a bit like we're doing now. And of course, the whole voice aspect that really makes your communication just one solution for everything.
And there's also a security aspect as well too to communications, as we all gravitate towards a world where we're really concerned about not only going to the cloud, making sure everything we do is secure in that cloud. Microsoft Teams also has a bunch of built-in security features. So for example, at SureWeb, that's the preferred way that we actually share data between each other. Sensitive information, anything of that nature, it all goes through Teams now. because it enables us to control the access of information, which is a little bit harder to do with an email, right? So there's a bunch of stuff in Teams that you can graduate to and more securely operate with as you expand on your journey towards that product.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a bit of getting used to at first. I remember when we first started to do it, instead of sending email attachments of files and things like that, you make one typo and you've sent, a whole bunch of confidential information to your, to someone who sounds like Michael Slater, but it's actually Michael Sater.
Michael Slater, that guy, I hate him.
Exactly. But yeah, it's really built like that, because that's one thing as well, right? Whenever you're trying to move, you're scrambling, you're trying to make sure that you're not improvising too much, and there's actually some sense of what you're doing. You don't want to sacrifice security. You want to make sure that you're using a solution that had the enterprise business built in mind when they built the infrastructure. And that's one thing we can say for sure about Teams, is that all the compliance, all the security comes with it. You're not sacrificing anything by starting to use this channel. And once you're using the services, a bit like Mike was saying earlier, you can start implementing, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, have sites within Teams, and making sure that no one is able to share those files or to access data that they're not supposed to access. The second step that is helping companies move to working remotely is what's called the RDS services. You may have heard, RDS CALs, RDS SALs. Those are a way to be able to have your desktop at home, log in to your computer either at work if you have an on-premise server, or in the cloud if you already have your infrastructure in the cloud. We've been using this for many years now. It's still, as of today, how I log in remotely, because I have to work from home. And one of the advantages of that is that your desktop follows you wherever you go. So you don't have to make sure that whenever you're working from home on a file, that you're saving it and emailing it to yourself, so that whenever you go to work the next day, or if you're on a different computer or using your phone or a tablet, is that same experience, is those same documents, those same bookmarks on your browsers that are available. There's also a way, since we have a lot of experience on that, to make sure that you're using only what you need. Traditionally, whenever you are using an on-premise server, you'd want to buy the server that would get you the utmost capacity for what you think you're going to be using 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. With the cloud, you only have to pay for what you use right now. In theory, in other circumstances, we would talk about growth and how you want to make sure that you're going to have more employees and more things. But right now, one thing that's also good to consider is the fact that you may need to scale down certain services for the time being. You may need to go into hibernation for a while, and having the cloud makes this a lot easier than having your on-premise server that you're still, either making payments for, or is slowly but surely, getting older and older, and not, giving you that return on investment that you had before. Is there anything you want to add to this, Mike?
Not so much from my end, but what I would always consider is if you do want to make that jump, is again to scope your immediate need for it. So short term, what is your immediate gain from doing this? So if you do have something on on-prem or something legacy that you'd like to remove and switch to RDS, then that makes total sense to do it right now. But don't force it. If you already have a system that is working, again, because keep in mind, this is a hierarchy, right? We're starting from the communication from the Teams base point. So you want to make sure that all those base needs are met, and then we go down the route. So again, you might look at your business type and think, hey, great, I'm going to go to RDS tomorrow. This is what I want to do right away because Sherub said so. What you really need to do is look at your own business and see, does this fit my immediate need to get up and running today? And in some cases, yes, but in some cases, no. So again, like everything else in this journey we're taking together for the remainder of this webinar, you need to be sure it applies to your business in the short term, or reach out to an expert and find out if it is or it doesn't apply. That would be my advice from this slide.
Yeah, that's great advice. Another thing that's part of remote access is the VPN. Last week I made the joke about how most of us are familiar with VPNs because of Netflix and other streaming services, but it does have a business case. It does have a use for enterprise. I found that this image does represent it well, because normally whenever you're trying to connect to the cloud, there's many different components that you have to account for. And with a VPN, it takes a bunch of these components and makes it in one secure service. There's also it's also important to, if you have, again, some legacy applications that are available in the cloud, to contact your providers to see if they have any type of secure connectivity that you can use directly with them, or if you have to go through different ways. But again, whenever, like Mike said for the last question, whenever you have something, if there's anything in here that feels like it might be a good fit for you, don't jump at it. Just talk to us, talk to an expert, just to make sure if it's a good fit for you. Because again, all roads lead to Rome, but they're not always the best road for you.
Some of them go through the river. So
especially if you know the history of Rome.
Correct.
One thing that's going to
There
be
was actually, Alex, one point of VPN I did want to touch really quickly, which is the
okay.
just the immediate security impact of VPN, kind of the benefit of it. So in the world we're living in right now, where quarantines are coming, lockdowns might be coming to effect, depending on where you are, you're not entirely sure where you might be working. So a real life example could be you're on a road trip, you have to go visit your in-laws because you have a sick parent. Well, now you're stuck working out of where they live. So now you're on Wi-Fi that presumably who knows how many people have the password to, who is the access. Maybe there's a very industrious script kiddie somewhere in the household or someone, a neighbor that has the Wi-Fi, and you are now broadcasting sensitive company data, again, depending on the type, for this kid to pick up if he knows how to use a packet sniffer correctly. So again, it sounds like a small thing, but compounding the problems we already have, you want to make sure you're being as serious as possible. So VPN, it really might be necessary depending on the level of privacy and control over the internet connection you're operating on during this crisis, the quality of it, right? So there is a lot of real life examples why we should be doing it and should attach to it. A lot of bigger companies have policies where you can't use coffee shop internet. It's not so much a concern right now, but it's been a security concern forever, which is, which connection are you using and do you trust it? And we are going to talk a little bit about zero trust scenarios in the next coming slides, but that's a great example of a practical physical example of it.
This is true, and one thing that you're making me think of, talking about using home Wi-Fi networks and things like that. Having a VPN does reduce a lot of the exposure that you have on that. One thing that you will want to investigate whenever you're choosing a VPN type solution is that, again, a couple months ago, a year ago, whenever people were talking about VPNs, it was usually for a small percentage of the workforce. You are looking at 10, 20, 30% of the workforce that would be working remotely at any given time, peak, whereas now it's 100% of the workforce. You have to make sure that you're taking an enterprise grade type solution that can handle that type of stress.
Yeah, especially when your concurrent users climb, there is a burden on that, right? The classical limitation of computing still apply, which is, power and cooling. So, again, if any server that you have set up to connect to VPNs will be stressed out if everybody in the company logs in at the same time, right? So that is a consideration. If you buy this infrastructure, is it scaled correctly? And that's a misstep people occasionally make.
Indeed. Okay, now to slide 3, right? Am I good?
Correct. We're good to
go. So again, now whenever you're talking about communication, the first thing was to make sure everyone was able to communicate together. But now it's how do you enable teamwork? People used to be able to go into the office, book a room together, or just go to somebody else's desk, start working together. It's not possible now. Everybody is working remote, so you have to make sure you have to look at ways for people to be able to communicate and work together and to collaborate on different files. Of course, Office 365 is great at that. You are able to co-author documents together. There's the SharePoint for it's kind of like the intranet site for the company. Then you have the OneDrive where everyone can upload files, and again, without sacrificing any type of security. It's not a home solution. It really is the OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online that Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies use all the time for security. There's also things that you'll want to, it's going to be a bit of self-questioning that you'll have to do. Certain things that we didn't think about before was, well, if you are working from home and you need to contact one of your clients, if I call from my cell phone, it's going to show my cell phone number. Do I want that to happen? Do I want to hide it? And this is where, other solutions, such as, bridges or PBX solutions are able to come in and solve those issues to make sure that whenever you're calling from your personal cell phone, it's still showing the business phone number associated to you. And whenever people are calling in, they're still getting the same type of menus that they were getting. It's just that it's reaching your cell phone now instead of your desktop. We have, a lot of different ways to help people do this. The first one is from our solution integrated into Teams, which we call the Unified Communications, the UCaaS. And for this, since it's a bit more complex and more, see, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so complex. I'm gonna go straight to Slater, and you can tell us a bit about UCaaS.
So what makes UCaaS interesting is UCaaS is basically a combination of what we consider to be the two best worlds when it comes to productivity and information communication technology. So UCaaS has a very broad definition. Typically, people look at it as, oh, I now have the ability to make a telephone call and I can have a conference bridge. But in reality, it goes a lot deeper to that. The idea here, and you can read on the slide, is the united interface for almost all your business needs. So what we do is we integrate telephony, again, the classic staple of business that everybody uses. And I always ask this question, any conferences, any speaking spots I do. If you have an immediate issue with the company and you're over the age of 40, your immediate response is to have a telephone call to figure it out. Obviously, as you get younger and younger, we go towards more and more abstract ways of doing it, probably all the way to TikToking your problems away. But for the most of us, especially the people that have the money to spend, the main way of doing it is we're going to go to the telephone to get our stuff figured out. So UCaaS blends the best of both of that, right? So you can have the instant messaging, the chat, the SMS, all those different interfaces, plus the telephony part that you need to keep your business running. So UC really is something for a high energy business, somebody that's really involved a lot with their clients, and very high touch, very high level of service will usually want to engage with. Not to say that telephony isn't great. We feature Cloud PBX for a reason on the slide because it has so much value. Cloud PBX, if you're in the food delivery business right now, which again is a really big market, that's one of the few service industries still operating nowadays, given the restrictions and the current prohibitions on business. That's a fantastic way to ensure that your clients get reached every single time. Building call queues, right? Having the ability of clients to hold to place orders. All these practical things that you don't think about in a crisis, but again, being inundated with phone orders, you need to be prepared to take on that volume. The other aspect here is bringing something on-prem and bringing something into the cloud. So there's two ways you can do it. You can completely shift over to a PBX solution, or you can do a hybrid scenario where you can put UCaaS over your existing PBX. It gives you the ability to access those features remotely. So if you have an on-prem PBX, maybe that's not working right now because not everybody can be on the same network because everybody's working remotely. This is a great way to address that, either through Teams or through your native telephony options. You can do it with both. The key thing to remember here, though, is that you are supported. So there's a lot of providers, again, like SureWeb, that offer emergency onboardings. We get you up and running in a couple of hours in some cases, depending on the business need. The idea of kind of getting pre-provisioned hardware already set up, or the ability to bring in your existing hardware. And again, just having something a little bit more custom, because again, every single business is a little bit different when it comes to telephony. There really is no clear-cut solution. So what we offer is tailor-made solutions to kind of address every business need. Especially in transition, you want to make sure that whoever you pick is that you partner up with somebody who understands the uniqueness of your business and can design your solution around that uniqueness, which is a key part. So make sure that when you are communicating, you're communicating well.
Yeah, and just a question, Mike. Like whenever Cloud PBX was first presented to me, and just again with what you're saying, it does sound like it's a lot of a lot of involvement for the actual client. Like, is there any heavy lifting that they have to do, or is it mainly our team that's going to be doing everything?
Great question, Alex. And the answer to that is mainly our team. So what makes us a little bit different and providers of our caliber, what I consider to be a high tier solution, is that you have a project manager assigned to every single onboarding. So at the end of the day, the only limitation and often that we have when we onboard people is the issues between somebody basically not responding fast enough to our team to get the ball rolling. Because again, there's forms, there's steps you have to do. That's standard in every single telephone system. That's the reason why most people don't change them until they hit a point of crisis like they do right now. But again, if you pick a team that has the right experts, that has the expertise, the manpower, that can help you quickly get up and running, you don't have to do that heavy lifting. There's someone there to do it for you.
And so things like say for example I have my phone number, I like my phone number. If I switch to Cloud PBX, does that mean I'm going to have a new phone number, or can I keep my phone number when I'm bringing it there?
You 100% keep what's there. So you could bring your existing number from virtually any provider, 99.9% of the time, and you just port it over. And again, that's the beautiful part about VoIP, is that you can take all this on-premise customer-facing information, fax numbers, phone numbers, everything else, and just port it right into the cloud. It's as easy as that.
And then the hardest question on that, if I'm able to bring my phone number, do I have to call the provider and go through their menu and their call is important to us and then they never answer?
No, you don't have to. All that's handled by the carriers in the back end nowadays. So there's no waiting to some slow jazz music for an hour and a half while everybody panically tries to do the same thing.
But what happens in the meantime then? If you're transferring the phone over, like do I have a temporary phone number in the meantime, or is it
Definitely do.
downtime?
Number forwarding is easy to do, so you can actually forward all the traffic to a temporary phone number and then absorb it from there. That's easy to do. Couple of steps that can be done through an online portal in most cases. Really simple to do. We can even help you get that set up if you need it. So again, that's standard. Everybody does that, and any provider you look at should have that ability as a baseline.
All right. Well, if I weren't completely biased and already working for ShareWeb, I would sign up to that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate your completely non-biased response.
Thank you. One other thing, moving on, one other thing that's been gaining a lot of momentum lately and has been accelerated by Microsoft trying to give more access to it is the famous Windows Virtual Desktop, which if you've read any of the marketing stuff on it, is the be all end all solution to all.
I hear it's the second coming of Windows.
It's the Windows, yes. Well, it's the Messiah but backwards.
Got it.
A lot of different remote desktop solutions, remote app, have a lot of components. Whenever we were talking about the VPN earlier, how it already included some components. Windows Virtual Desktop tries to do all of that for you at once. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about it more in detail, Mike.
Sure. So what makes Windows Virtual Desktop a little bit different is it kind of offers what I call a native Windows experience, right? So you have things like the integration of your Office 365 applications. You also have access to, again, the most latest and greatest version of Windows consistently across the entire environment. And you can have multiple users logging into the exact same Windows instance at the same time instead of how you do with RDS. That's a couple of the little differences right there. It really is like a complete end-to-end experience, and depending on your Windows licensing, it can be very, very, very affordable if you already are an existing Microsoft 360 customer. There's a lot of value out of it. There's a lot of drive, and I think that again in this current environment, people are going to see it, especially people that are maybe trying to migrate from a compliance-rich environment, right, where they need to be compliant with stuff. Because again, Microsoft is the market leader when it comes to compliances and IT. So again, for very specific clients, this will be a great product to look at given the current situation.
That's a great point. It does bring a lot of peace of mind knowing that this solution was built again with the enterprise industry in mind, with all of the different compliances in mind as well. So you're not putting yourself at risk, you're not exposing client data or anything like that by going to this solution. Because for a long time, the main reason stopping people from going to the cloud was fear of hackers, security issues, and things like that. So having the true, native solution from Windows, from Microsoft, does alleviate a lot of those concerns.
Correct.
And one thing, because I've been, on a lot of the webinars, and they're showing, what Windows Virtual Desktop can do, what it can bring. And I think one thing that's a major game changer for a lot of people is the fact that you're able to run this on Apple devices. And I'm talking about like your MacBook Pro at home can log into Windows Virtual Desktop and you have the exact same Windows 10 experience that you would have from a PC. You'll have to deal with the keyboard. That's going to be slightly different, but for everything else, it's the same experience. And for all my life with people, it was always the ultimate holy grail. Having, there's been, Parallels before, there's, Wine out there, but having the true Windows experience without having to give money to any type of PC manufacturer was never achievable until now.
Correct.
The end user experience, again, I just talked about the platform of your choice. And the other thing that's also very different with the Windows Virtual Desktop is, again, to be able to have multimedia and any type of streaming and replay without losing massive performance. Anyone that's used RDS before knows that if in the RDS environment, someone is loading even a YouTube page or anything like that, it's out of sync, it's delayed, it doesn't work very well. They usually end up giving you the link and then tell everybody to watch it on your own browser and let me know when it's done.
Correct.
Windows Virtual Desktop does fix that. Of course, it will have other components like your internet connection, the bandwidth that you have, and then of course what type of resources you're willing to put into those machines, right? Because if you are trying to stick to the lowest possible specs on the machine, it doesn't create miracles. Like you'll get what you pay for, if you will, on the actual user experience. But
Correct.
before this, it wasn't an option to have a good experience. So now you get to have it.
It's true. With a lot of the scalability added into these things, even what we consider to be a power user can get a lot of flexibility out of the solution. So for instance, RDS is great if you're just doing administrative work, right? But let's take that administrator and put that into context of a company, like an architect firm, somebody running AutoCAD. So again, the workloads can be very different depending on the virtual machines you're using. So each one might have a different requirement, and you can actually build pools using other tools that'll enable you to basically customize desktops by load. So if someone does have something that they are running, again, AutoCAD on, the demands will be infinitely more than someone just doing light administrative work. And we'll talk a little bit about that in our Nerdio slide. But again, you can even use other tools to create quick provisioning profiles to get these things up and running very fast. There's a lot of advantages to going in the Windows Virtual Desktop route.
Exactly. If you're wanting to run Windows Virtual Desktop yourself, there are some steps that will require PowerShell. It's the goal eventually is to make this a UI type experience the whole way through. But right now you're still going to need to use some PowerShell, and we will be providing you all the different steps. Like Mike just said, in the first steps you get to choose all the templates, for the host pool and the machines that they recommend, like the basic ones. But then afterwards, after you deploy, you'll be able to monitor, what kind of resources they're using, and then you'll be able to optimize. It is fairly intensive if you want to do it, fully manually. But as you just mentioned, hey, I timed it right. There are third-party services that make this way easier. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Nerdio?
No problem. So we love Nerdio for situations like this. So Azure is a fantastic platform, but one of the main issues with it, I mean, even in virtual desktop, which sounds very straightforward, but depending on the situation can be harder to deploy, Nerdio stands out just for the capability of having you a single pane of glass, which you can manage all your different desktops and use easy templates. So instead of having to log into PowerShell and use commands, which I'll admit I'm not great at for the Azure certification, I stumbled quite a bit through the practical labs around PowerShell. I didn't do the best in that part, to be completely honest. But again, something like Nerdio makes it interesting because you can, like the slide says, get up and running in 60 seconds as far as it goes for provisioning, and have a ready-to-use system in a couple of hours. Literally run it over an afternoon, and you're up and running with a virtual desktop. So it's really one of the better ways to do it. As far as it goes to also for controls, you get a single place you can manage everything. There's a lot of things that Nerdio does that kind of sets it out from any other product on the market. So we're big fans of it. It is enterprise solution, so it's great for the mid-market. And again, the pricing is pretty cool too, because it's based on concurrent users, right? So again, if we're looking at deploying something a little bit more complex like this, again, on your scale that we showed everybody, right? This is now getting towards the more advanced levels right now if you start doing virtual desktops. So important for you to keep in mind that this might not be perfect for you, but in a world where this makes sense and this fits your business model and this is what the best way to do it, not only can SureWeb help you in this aspect, or any other Nerdio provider help you in this aspect of it, we can also add professional services on top of it as well too. So even if you need extra assistance even on top of that, because again, your main business isn't really doing IT, your main business, of course, is whatever your vertical you work in, whatever piece of that market you're in, we can take over that and help you with it. So never feel like you're stuck in a rut. That's my point. There's always ways to help.
Exactly, because that's the main message. We're showing a lot of different products, a lot of different solutions, a lot of different ways to go about it. But the main mission for us is to let you know you're not alone. We're there to help. We want to help. We want to make sure that what we're talking about right now is general for everyone, but whenever we're talking to you, it's going to be the solution that fits for you right now to make sure that your your primary concerns are addressed right away.
Correct.
And then security. Speaking of concerns,
Yeah.
the
Kidding.
as we've been talking, throughout this webinar, security keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. The great thing about the solutions that we're presenting is that security was always the first thing in mind whenever they've created those solutions. But for your business, for what you're living through right now, the old model, which traditionally might have been the castle type model because you have everybody in the same office, you wanted to make sure that you have, great walls around and nothing can get in, that's not authorized. But now it's remote working. Everybody is in their own environment. As we talked about before, you have home routers, home non-firewalls, people, in public places trying to connect to the cloud. So you have to make sure that whatever solution that you choose, you go with security first. Again, all the things that we offer do have security in mind at first. Most of the Microsoft products have been built on what they call the zero trust model, meaning that by default, any new user, any new service does not have access to anything. It has to be given, by the least possible slice, exposure to attack surface, if you want some fun words. It's how it's been built. What we do on top of that, we want to help you with either professional services or other add-ons. One thing is Office Protect, which is a great little add-on to Office 365 that lets you make sure that you have Office 365, you have all these great security features, you have no idea where they are or how to set them on. It's pretty much like, you have your home with the best security system, but you don't know how to lock the door or how to close the windows, right? Office Protect does that for you. A couple of clicks, it'll give you reports, alerts, monthly digest, just so you can keep track of what's going on. And this is really going to help you sleep at night, knowing that, you have all these employees right now that are accessing your data from their homes. You'll be able to see who's logging in, who's doing what, and at what time of the day they're doing it as well. The other service within Office 365 that's becoming more and more important is Intune, which is the device management. This is something that's going to help you let your employees use their personal laptop, their personal cell phone. Maybe it's a bit of an eye opener for you. They've been using it before without your approval, but now,
100%.
now they'll be doing it the right way, and then you'll be able to have that security as well, meaning that if they do lose their cell phone, you'll be able to remotely wipe any type of corporate data that's on that device. And then lastly, as far as security is concerned, we can't ignore online backup. As you've seen, with any type of crisis that comes up, not everyone is rowing in the same direction. There are some bad actors out there. There are some people trying to scam with either, like COVID phishing type emails or, any type of, I even read about like a DNS hacking with something, I don't even know what I'm talking about. This morning with one company, and it's all about the COVID, and because people are they're kind of improvising right now. They don't know exactly where they're going. People are taking advantage of that. So you may be victim to ransomware at the worst possible time. The only way for sure to be able to be ransomware proof is to have a completely independent service. The one that we like is through Acronis. It gives you online backup, and you're able to do cloud to cloud with it as well. So you don't have to have any type of appliance or hardware to install for that.
True. Alex, I got some good news and some bad news. You ready? The good news is that we have apparently 1 million questions waiting for us. The bad news is we got to rush to the end of this now to accommodate all of them, which is exciting.
All right. So I'll let you do the sixth slide, which is talking about the Performance Cloud in Azure, and then we'll be at the questions.
Excellent. So also something important to keep in mind is redundancy, right? So Microsoft, and again, us and every other cloud company, we spent billions and billions of dollars trying to tell you that the cloud is secure and you'll never lose your data once it's in there. In reality, yes and no. There's caveats to that in every single solution. So all depending on what you're looking at and what your actual application need is, once you do go remote, once you do put all the data into the cloud, you need to make sure that you're picking a service that kind of highlights a couple of different things. So one thing that you're looking at is the ability to either back up information and to secure data center, right? So again, one of the highest certifications you can get. Make sure that when you're uploading your sensitive customer data, things that you can't just create again, your IP, your designs, your patents, even the secret recipe to your shawarma sauce, it all has value. We want to make sure that it's always preserved. So you need to have a mix of online backup, redundancy, and disaster recovery. So you can do that in multiple ways. One of the parts we work for that is Veeam Disaster Recovery and Replication. That's a big vendor we deal with a lot in this particular space. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're super concerned about your data, you can go somewhere like Azure. There's Azure Site Recovery and there's Geo Redundancy. So a lot of Azure regions come in pairs. So by default, depending on what you do, you can have a certain amount of security that you just can't get in most other places. Again, Azure is very well known for that. It does cost money, and it is something to keep in mind. Any cloud provider that you pick that promises 100% redundancy with an SLA, it will have a price tag associated to it. So make sure that when you're in that selection process, you're going through a vendor that meets your needs. Because again, not all data is equal. Some data is more important than others. You need to make sure that when you are selecting for where you want that to reside, it matches that business need.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll wrap it up there for me.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to add is that whenever you're choosing, for disaster recovery and what to back up, think of it like car insurance. It really depends on the car for what kind of coverage that you want to get for it.
Perfect analogy, exactly.
Lastly, before we go to the questions, just want to let everyone know that we do have different promotions and trials for every single step that we talked about today. The situation is fairly fluid. We're making things better, for certain trials. Microsoft is making things better for a lot of different trials. So maybe in a week or so, these promotions that have been like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months will be even longer. So do inquire with our team if you feel that some of these things might fit your business. And now we're at the Q&A part. I survived. Thanks, Mike. That helped a lot. I didn't feel like I was talking to myself the whole time. It really
well,
did help.
Alex, normally, when my staff starts talking to themselves, I usually have to go talk to HR. So I'm glad we avoided that step.
Exactly. I'd like to ask the other panelists to show their webcams as well, and then we'll be able to take some questions.
Excellent. Looks like we're ready. Jeremy?
So the first questions come from Alain Dudois. Can SureWeb support help me set up my team's first steps and team's group?
Yep, so I'll jump into that one. So what we can do, so we don't do deployment services when it comes to Teams. As a solution itself is very much a self-serve solution. However, you can leverage our team and our reps as well to help guide you through some of the best practices and maybe just help you, well, definitely when it comes to the pricing and what licensing is required. But in terms of the deployment itself, in terms of building out IVRs and HUD groups, for example, it's not something that we can do through Teams. However, we do have our UCaaS solution, which Mike and Alex mentioned earlier, in which case we do offer an end-to-end deployment service. So there's definitely a flavor for everyone.
Yeah, and the initial deployment of Teams is really, really, really simple. Like it's really just going to portaloffice.com, download Teams, or join a Teams meeting if you get an invite from someone. So when you're talking about initially deploying Teams, that first step can be done, self-serve very easily. If you do get stuck, if you're trying to do something, a bit more complex, and you do get stuck, you get errors, then that's part of our support, to help you fix errors. But again, like James said, there's a fine line between, doing the implementation for you and supporting you when you're trying to do it yourself. And we try to do best effort. We try to go above and beyond, but it really is in a support capacity and not a implementation capacity. if you feel that you really want to have a professional team do the implementation for you, we do have a network of partners that we can reach out to that can do that service for you.
Next question is from Kirsten Severson. So is VoIP secure? And will a strange, very long number shows up on the call display?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the security of VoIP because this is a common misnomer. So when it comes to security in VoIP, it suffers from the exact same security limitations that classical PSTN calling does. The reason why I say that and why it's relevant is back in the day, or even now to an extent, if you have an office telephone using an analog phone, a really smart guy could walk up to the tower, get on top of it, open up the box, and plug a little device into the phone, the lines that are available inside the jacket, and start listening to your phone calls right away, right? So again, telephone systems are really only as secure as the PSTN that's attached to it, which is to say not secure at all. On our end, though, we do take all the steps we can do. So we have lots of security set up around our PBX physical, network level security, application security, and privileged access security for authentication and verification on our PBX at all times. So again, we have complex password requirements, all these different things. So everything we can secure in network is secured. You could rest assured, we even do encoding if you'd like as well. That's an option we can turn on for certain VoIP customers. So we will take all the steps that we can, but you have to realize that every telephone solution in the world, be it digital, be it analog, be it VoIP, you need to keep in mind that not in every single case can you secure something in the classical way you can with data. Because again, the second something hits the publicly accessible telephone network, right, there's no more security in that sense. So as much as we can, yes. As much as we can't, that's the limitation of every other company, VoIP or not.
Next question is from Maya Spilma. So on the security issue, 365 has security controls for third parties. But what about MS itself? What does Microsoft itself have access to the data you stored on their cloud? And what happens when you want to go on another solution?
I'd love to let James Sawyer answer that question.
Well, I mean, there is, if you're worried about security and you don't even want Microsoft to access your data, there is something called Customer Lockbox, which removes Microsoft access. If ever they do need access to do troubleshooting, you can give them temporary authorizations to be able to access it. And it's the same thing for any kind of removal of data. They have GDPR policies in place, so they will delete personal data. They will not retain it beyond your request to have it deleted. And there's lots of tools available to be able to migrate on and off of platforms. So if you do decide to change, there are different ways to lift and shift that data off depending on where you're going.
Next one is from Stephen Robinson. Are you acting as a third-party provider for your VoIP offering, or is it your own product? Will all data reside in Canada?
Yeah, so it is a commercial platform, so it's something that we developed upon. So not something that we developed from the ground up ourselves, but definitely a solution that we made many improvements and put a sort of ShareWeb flavor to, along with the enhanced security options that we deployed as well.
But important to clarify, James, we're not reselling someone's solution, right? We're not,
No.
again, buying from Avaya, right, and just reselling Avaya's PBX. We're not buying from Bell and reselling Bell's PBX. This is something that we create ourselves, and we can set up the call routing to work specifically in Canada only if you'd like. That's a possibility. We can set that up. That's on a case-by-case basis. So it is something we can do.
And I'd add to that, just because, and as you guys know, I don't even like cars. I don't know why it's the second car analogy I do. But we didn't invent the wheel, we didn't invent the engine, but it's our car.
Perfect.
Next one is from Kirsten Severson. We have already gone in the cloud via Abacus in Toronto, but we've had issues with system latency receiving info from Vancouver, in Vancouver. Would similar issue arise if our data is on a server in Quebec?
That's a good question. Eric, maybe that would be your lane.
Yep. So again, it will depend here on the workloads, the types of machines. If you're in the West, so we have many customers on Azure that will have the data locations either central that will cover this. Our Performance Cloud product is based in the East, but this being said, we do have customers out West running it without any issues there. but the best is to really test it maybe with a few workloads. You could test drive both solutions either on Azure or Performance Cloud to see the latency that you will get.
Yeah, I'll add to that again, like, the world is finite, it is round. And I've played online games all my life, and if the server was located in Hong Kong or Brazil, that was not the main factor. The actual geographical distance is not the factor. It's the technology behind it, and it's the policies and the settings that you have.
Next one is from Brendan Cluzio. So for Windows Virtual Desktop, do you need a Windows server running group policy and Active Directory along with Azure Active Directory with Add Connect turned on?
Go ahead, Eric. You look like
Yeah,
you're
so
about
on
to say
this
something.
one, we would need a solution architect to really answer it. So we can take it offline and come back to you.
Yeah, because there's a multitude of potential use cases for
Yep.
that one, right, Eric? Because it depends on what clients you're currently on. If you're in a hybrid environment, then there's a series of questions we need to discuss. Again, when it comes to Azure AD or anything to do with identity, there are certain limitations of what you can do on and off prem. So this sounds like this is a blended solution already. So this would definitely be a solution architect length conversation with the scoping guide, unfortunately, just because it really is something when it comes to any kind of IS move. This is definitely a measure twice, cut once situation. So we'll have to take that one offline.
As the most salesperson in the room, I'll say yes.
Correct.
Next one's from Ken Ataja. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. So we use Vonage for business for a call center. We also use Teams and Office 365. Is there a Microsoft solution to replace Vonage Business for call centers?
Nothing on the Microsoft side for the moment. We are working on something and hope to have more of a call center solution in the coming months. So definitely stay tuned. But on the Microsoft side, there's no sort of large scale call center deployment. They do support things like call queues, for example. So shades thereof, but nothing quite as in depth as a full blown call center, let's say with skill based routing or wallboards, for example.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. One of the biggest factors in call center, what differentiates what you're doing and difficulty, is that virtually anybody can do a basic inbound call center job, right? That's not too difficult. You set up call queues, you set up hunt groups, you do these very basic little things. What it really comes down to is even if people have outbound call center, that's a whole specific different beast that very few people actually execute well on in this industry. I'd say there's maybe 20 players in the world that do a good job, or something I consider to be true contact center. Vonage's offering, again, usually is more for inbound light. So depending on your use case, again, talk with your expert, whoever that might be, depending on your requirements. Because again, one man's super complicated engine that's used to propel rockets into space is another man's Chevy Buick, or the confusing car models too. I'm worse of a car guy than Alex is. I should stay away from that. But again, there's a level of complication you can get to. You might not even need it. So again, talk with your experts in this time of need. Figure out exactly what those requirements that you have that matter, because you might not even need contact center. In reality, most people just don't. So talk to your experts, figure it out. Maybe we have a help answer for you, or someone else will.
Normand Huppé is asking, I received an email from SureWeb speaking about frontline staff offer. What is the cost to use Team and without emails?
Well, that email that you received was a couple of weeks ago or 30 years ago, depending on which timeline you are thinking of.
Which one
It
you're
was
living in?
definitely before this era. And as I mentioned during the webinar, like whenever we're talking about the promotions, things are changing and have changed. So there is a play, or there was a play from Microsoft for frontline workers, just as a team standalone license, or teams with a very light inbox, kind of like kiosk, if you're familiar with what Office 365 was. But right now, the go-to solution is either going to be the free commercial trial for Teams for 6 months, or the E1 commercial trial for 6 months. So it's free, and there's no limit.
Daniel Armstrong is asking, should I be limiting our Office 365 access to users logged into VPN?
Mr. Sawyer, maybe?
Well, I mean, like anything, a VPN won't protect from certain things. So yes, you should always put in security on Office 365, multi-factor authentication, DLP policies, things like that to avoid people from accidentally letting data slip. An example is put a policy on OneDrive so that you can only share links internally. So that way, any projects that people are working on within their OneDrive, it doesn't accidentally get sent out to somebody that's not in the company. Things of that nature. The VPN is great for remote work if you need to remote into something, or if you're using a CRM or Dynamics that you only want people with VPN access to be able to log into. But outside of that, all of the extra stuff like SharePoint, your Outlook, and stuff like that, those can all be accessed if somebody hacks your password. So having something like multi-factor is a great way to avoid that happening, because they'd have to have your password and your cell phone, or the password and your authenticator code on that authenticator app on, so they're less likely to be able to get something like that. So I would strongly suggest, don't think that a VPN is the only thing you need for security. It can help for certain types of connections, but
And it
for
helps just
Office
for network
365,
security, right, Mr. Sawyer? That's the main focus
yes,
there. But there's so many
exactly.
other parts of it. You need to look at security holistically when you have these conversations. You know, Microsoft always presents the multiple layers, right? The domes within a dome. And the network security is really just a top layer that's just below physical. So you really need to look at it as things that James was saying. You need to focus on, again, your multi-factor authentication, what you guys have for routes if you guys have an Azure. Like, do you guys automatically have communications disabled between routes between different machines that there's no reason for them to talk? Like, you really want to focus more on the security aspects and making sure at every level you're adapted than just focusing on the network. That's a lighter concern. And again, in the it's might be in the confusion. What I mentioned about my previous example is for your basic home connection, which your whole family has a password and there's no one else, you probably don't need a VPN. A VPN is really going to help if you're in situations where you can't trust the physical network security, which can happen. So use that. But if people are in their home office merely connected with like 3 other people, and it's, your son, your daughter, maybe your wife or your husband, you don't have to worry so much about it. So keep that in mind. VPNs really are more of, I can't trust this network. Here too, I would like to take an extra step in security. That's what the practical use is for.
Rose is asking, how do I know if my current system will support the staff members working remotely?
Well, it depends what kind of system you mean, because again, since this is all in the cloud, the actual system requirements to run Teams are very, very, very basic, because obviously it's the same experience that you can have from a cell phone, a tablet, an old laptop. So we probably want to get some sort of details onto that question, what you mean by system. But for anything that we do, any type of project that we want to get involved with, we do an assessment of some kind at first to make sure that it's feasible, whether it's a cloud migration, whether it's an upgrade of licensing, from Windows 7 to Windows 10. We'll send you that documentation as well.
A lot of the software and applications and whatnot, usually there's specific requirements that are available online. We can always provide that documentation for you too. If you let us know what you're looking for, we can make sure you have the specs, like the spec sheet for the requirements.
So you will now see 2 questions on your screen. Please make sure to answer both. We want to make sure to offer consulting services to help you migrate to the cloud or with whatever problem you have. So if you can just answer this question, that would help us a lot.
And the other thing too I want to point out is actually the results of that last poll, which we didn't discuss. Jeremy, what were those exact numbers of Teams users? You were saying what percentage?
Just give me one quick second while this one is currently running, but it was approximately 50% of the people who were using Teams and 50 who weren't.
Wow, it's a big delta.
And these questions are, these answers are currently being asked, and the people are asking to get more information about Microsoft Teams. So we'll make sure to be posting, we'll make sure to be sending you material for you to get started on Microsoft Teams for sure, and also on remote desktop access.
Now, one thing I did want to bring up too, nobody really talked about it. There is another product that we also offer, Quick Help. which does offer a lot of training and how to use certain Office 365 products. So it's definitely something that could be interesting for you if you want to learn more about Teams, you want to learn more about remote work. There's new courses that have been uploaded there in regards to that as well. These are things that are available to you through us, so they can definitely help you not only learn on your own, but empower your users. All of the courses are very short. The videos are 1 or 2 minutes each, so it's quick and easy to digest in between meetings and stuff. So it's not a 1-hour seminar that you have to sit through, and you can do it on the go. You can assign it specifically to specific users that need those courses. And once you get used to it, you can even upload your own material into it. So if you have on-premise processes or things that you want to push out to your end users or things like that, you can utilize that as a training platform overall.
That's amazing, James. Thank you, because yeah, that was my bad. That was part of one of the slides. It even says, you know, that education is half the battle, but only 10% of efforts are put into education. So
Correct.
just for what you said, and especially in this setting of everyone having to work from home, the admins in your business that want to make sure that there's some sort of uniformity of processes and things like that, QuickUp is a great platform for you to upload that employee content there. Not only because it's, you know, convenient that it's already made, but the fact that you can track it and you can make sure that they have seen it. So thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer, for bringing that up. I owe you a beer.
My pleasure. Another one.
Well, I think we're done with questions. Jeremy told me that we've answered pretty much all the questions we got. But I'd like to thank you, like our attendees, for attending this webinar, and of course you, everyone on the panel, to help our clients to move to the cloud. And don't hesitate to reach to us if you have any questions. Everyone within this panel and also within our teams are 100% available to answer any questions you have. So thank you, everyone, and hope you'll have a great day.
Good luck and stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe. Thanks all.